Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So before we start today's video, a quick reminder: if you found value in this video, please consider subscribing, liking, commenting and sharing the video. That would really help because YouTube's algorithms will use this information to push the video out to more people. Well, thank you so much and let's get straight into the video. This video is part 2 of my previous video, Introduction to Star Schema Modeling Technique. In that video, we looked at a practical example of how to design a star schema. So we identified the fact table, which was the main sales data. We then determined the grain of the data, which is one row per product sold per order. Thirdly, we identified the measures, which are our total sales, the total number of orders and the total number of transactions. And finally, we went on to identifying the dimensions, which are the order date, the ship date, customer, product and ship mode. So putting all this information into our star schema model, we have the fact table in the center, the sales data, surrounded by our dimension tables. I'll put the link above and in the video description below so you can check out that video if you haven't watched it yet. In this video, we'll upload this sales data into PowerBI desktop and apply our star schema design. So let's get started. Okay, so over to Power BI, let's load in our data. As you all know by now, you go to transform data into Power Query and a new source. Let's get our data. And as I like to do things, we're going to create some folders to organize our queries in. So I like to have that under source for our main file. And then we're going to have our data model folder to organize all our data models in. Let's move this over to the source folder. So we're going to leave the source query as is. We'll do our reference. And now we move this query down into the data model folder because now it will become our fact sales table. Next, we'll import this date dimension M code. So notice that I put static values for the start and end dates. So for now, you can just keep things simple, but as you progress through your learning journey, you can become more complicated with the way you automate your start and end date, right? So for now, let's just keep things simple. So I'm just going to copy this in query editor. I'll go new source, blank query, advanced editor, so I have access to the entire query editor, and I paste my M code. Okay, so we've got all the necessary columns here: the date column, the year column, the month, etc. So I'll just rename that dim order. So next we'll create our dim ship date. So that's very simple because we already have our dim order date in place. So we'll just copy that. So right click, duplicate, ship date. Okay, so next up, what do we have? We've got the product, the ship mode and the customer dimensions to create. So let's go. Okay, the ship mode. So we're going to go directly to our source query and reference. Let's rename that dim product. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to select all our columns related to the product dimension. Right click, and now you see that you've got two options here. You can remove columns or remove other columns. So for example, if you have a large table like this, you can, and you just have 2 or 3 columns to delete. Like for my case here, I've just got 4. Well, you select those columns that you want to keep, and then you select remove columns, remove other columns. Okay, first step. The next step is for us to go in and remove the duplicates. So that's what we do. That's what we'll do. Because remember, in the dimensions, we only have the unique values. Okay, so the dim product is done. Okay, next the ship mode. So once again we go over to our source query reference, put that under the dim product, dim ship mode, go over to our ship mode, right click, remove other columns, and then right click, remove duplicates. Ship mode is done. Next up, the customer dimension. Let's just quickly do that. Right click on the source code, source query reference, and over after our ship mode, dim ship mode, we go dim customer. Let's identify the columns related to the customer. We have the customer ID, customer name, segment, country, city, state, postal code, region. Okay, and then we go right click, remove other columns. Once again, we'll delete the duplicates in the customer ID because we want to only keep the unique values for the customer. And we're done for the dim customer dimension. Okay, next I'll do some cleanup in the fact sales table. So this data here for the customer, we start off with the customer information. We're going to delete the customer name, segment, country, city, state, postal code, region. So we'll just keep the customer ID, and that column will be the one that we'll use to create the relationship with the dim customer. So let's go, let's remove these columns. Okay, and it's likewise for the product. We're going to remove category, subcategory, product name. We'll just keep the product ID, remove columns. Okay, so now we've got all the necessary columns here. Ship mode, we'll leave it as is, and the dimensions, and we're done for the fact sales table. The next step is that we'll go through our tables and confirm that our data columns are of the correct data type. So starting off with the fact sales, let's just quickly go through order date, shipment, that's fine. Okay, order date and the ship date is fine because that's a dim dimension that we just imported. Product is fine, all text fields. Ship mode text field, no text field as well for the dim customer. Okay, so the data types are correct. So finally we'll disable load for our source query. So right click, enable load, we're going to uncheck that. Continue, that's fine. Okay, so basically what's going to happen is that when we're trying to load this data or these queries into our main report file, the source query will not be loaded as well. We'll just load all our queries that's being identified under the data model. But we've still got it checked to include in the report refresh. So basically what that means is that when we update our data set, when we update the report, when we click on update here, Power Query will reconnect back to our source file and load in the data if ever we've got some new data to load in. So, and that completes all our transformation steps to do in the Power Query editor. So next up we're going to close and apply and load all this information into our main PowerBI report. Okay, and the data tables have been loaded. Next we'll go directly into our model view and look at the data tables that's been loaded. Okay, so we see you should have something similar like this. So we're going to start off with a fact table. We want to put that in the center, and we have our dimensions around. Okay, notice that some of the dimensions have already, the relationships between our dimensions and the fact tables have already been created for some for these 3 dimensions here. So let's just organize that for now, and then we'll look at the dimensions. The order date and the ship date haven't been created. Well, that's normal. If Power BI creates automatically relationships like this, that means the columns in both the fact table and the dimension tables are the same. And also, as you can see, it has correctly identified the type of relationship. We call that the cardinality.
So I explained all that in a previous video, so I won't go into much detail there. So Power BI automatically creates these relationships with the correct cardinality when the columns in the fact table and the dimension tables are the same. Okay, so next up, let's create the relationships between our fact table and our ship date, the dim ship date and the dim order date. So we're going to connect the date column from our ship date to start off with directly to our ship date in our fact sales. Okay, and next up we'll create a relationship between the dim order date and our fact sales table. So select our dim date in our dim order date and drop it over the order date column in the fact sales table. And now that completes our data model. Now we've successfully applied the Star Schema sales model in the model view. So now we're done. Okay, the final task left to do is to create our measures. If you watched my previous video, you know that I always like to organize my measures in a new table, so I'll do that now. Okay, measures. Load. Okay, so let's create our first measure. Right click on our key measures table, go new measure. So our first measure is total sales. Okay, total sales, we'll use the sum function. You know it's in the fact table, fact sales, and let's go sales. Didn't get that. Sales. Okay, total sales, that's done. I'm going to delete this column here. Okay, next up, let's create our second measure. That's total orders. Okay, remember from the grain of our data that we've identified, it's going to be a distinct count of our row ID, our order ID. Okay, and last but not the least, let's create the total number of transactions. And that's just going to be the count. You can either go count row, so we can just use count fact table, count the row ID. Okay, so that completes all our measures. Coming back to the model view, let's just see where our table is. Our key measures table, I always like to put it under my fact sales table, the fact table. And congratulations, you have successfully applied the Star Schema in the model view. You've created your measures, and that, my friends, is the semantic model in Power BI. You've successfully created the semantic model in Power BI. Congratulations. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some value in this video. If so, please consider supporting the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.